Do you ever think you have a great idea for a HOI4 campaign, only for it to turn into a disaster that you're not even sure is worth playing out? That's basically what this campaign was for me. I get joy out of beating hard challenges in video games, so I thought a way to make a fun challenge for me in Kaiserreich would be to play a Germany game where I would max buff all the people who would fight me. Flash forward to the next day in my 10th attempt, and I'm down bad, considering just scrapping this whole video idea. But then I figured it out. The one scenario that would allow me to win. Kaiserreich was updated the same day Arms Against Tyranny was released, so I can keep enjoying the new features of the DLC. Now, the German focus tree is still pretty basic in Kaiserreich, but it does its job fine. There is supposed to be a grand rework of this focus tree, but it is progressing at a Star Citizen pace, so who knows when we're actually gonna see it. But the first thing I want to do is start selling weapons on the market. Germany has a really good starting military industry, so I can afford to sell a bunch of stuff. When Black Monday hits, the construction bonuses you get from selling guns and other weapons are very good to counter the debuffs you get to constructing buildings. There are a lot of wars to get involved in as Germany, and the first one I decided on was in China to secure German interest in the region. I sent 2 heavy tanks commanded by Manstein that I thought would easily handle some Chinese militia. And I was right, they made a big breakthrough in the lines and rushed towards some supply hubs to await reinforcements and resupply. But the AI never followed behind Manstein or even sent supplies down the river to resupply the tanks, so they just had to wait there to be broken out. Something that the Chinese militiamen weren't gonna let happen. When the Spanish Civil War happened, I kinda lost my 2 best divisions for helping the Kingdom of Spain win. So now I figured the chances of them winning were pretty low, but that didn't mean I couldn't get anything out of it. I'm already making big bucks selling guns to nations across the world. And as for Spain, well, this is a great learning opportunity for the military. The odds may be stacked against them, but I want to see how well they do with a little bit of material support. So, what did I learn from this? Well, apparently, the AI doesn't do good when it doesn't have enough equipment to support its army. They lost Madrid pretty early on in the war, killing any hope I had for them to bring it back somehow. Also, can't say I'm a fan of how the politics in the Nordic countries have developed. Sweden and Norway joined the Reds, and every time I call Finland they just babble slogans about how the West has fallen and won't join my faction, leaving me with just Denmark as an ally. Things could be worse though. It could be Austria, who is having to deal with half their empire declaring independence with the support of other Balkan nations. Unsurprisingly, a month later, the Empire was forced to accept the independence of those rebelling countries, so the Austrian-Hungarian Empire is now literally just Austria and Hungary. You'd think, after all they've been through together, at this point Austria and Hungary might have an even stronger bond, but the Hungarians just wanted to deal the final blow to kill the Empire. Since the Austrians couldn't take care of themselves, they just asked us to step in and annex them. Most of the former Austro-Hungarian Empire agreed that Germany was the way forward, with the new Hungarian and Czechoslovakian states joining my faction. But while I was making plenty of friends in Central Europe, the Balkans wanted nothing to do with me and threw their support behind Russia. So I had enemies in every direction, and my allies are gonna need as much support as possible. I needed a lot more time to build up my military, and fortunately I was able to sign a peace treaty with the Internationale, delaying a war for a whole year. So with that extra time, I was able to double the size of my army, bulk up my air force massively, but most importantly, I had time to start mass producing medium tanks. This is the ideal single player tank since all you need is soft attack to fight the AI until super late game. The war started in an unexpected way. The socialists whom I tolerated in Ukraine decided I was the real enemy and left the faction. I prepared my invasion of Ukraine, but so does Russia, seeing this as a golden opportunity. And since it's obvious I'm about to fight Russia, France sees this as a good enough time as any to invade me. When the war started, I moved to secure as much of Western Ukraine as possible, while also focusing on Yugoslavia, since they seemed like the weakest link in Russia's faction. The Entente called me up to work together, and I thought, sure, I needed all the friends I could get in the world, so I tried to remain reasonable with my demands with them. With the conference ongoing, I see that apparently the snake population in Eastern Europe has grown out of control, with Poland also declaring war on me with their new socialist government. This is even worse for me than Ukraine revolting, so obviously I have to go all out on destroying Poland. I deployed infantry and tanks without full training to deal with them, and they made short work of their rebellion. After seeing how well the Polish and Ukrainian uprisings went, Lithuania gets a really funny idea. At least they were smart enough to join Russia this time, so help was close by, but now the Eastern Front was in complete chaos. I had to send my tanks to crush Lithuania before the Russians could flood their country with troops. I basically couldn't do anything for the Western Front. The only support I could give them was telling the soldiers that they're doing a great job. I did manage to re-secure Lithuania and stabilize the Eastern Front line with my tanks at least. The Russian attacks here ran out of steam for the winter. You can't win a war in HOI4 by defending, so I needed to make a big offensive somewhere. I still believed that killing Yugoslavia was the way forward, and concentrated my tanks here for an offensive. Supply was a bit tricky, but I managed to push far into the country. The offensive was going great for me until I realized that the front lines I'd set up against Russia were not properly adjusting to the Russian attacks, so there was a huge hole left in the line in Poland. The damage the frontline AI did here couldn't be contained, so I had to rethink my eastern defense strategy. The Baltics were going to be abandoned, and I would try to hold a smaller defensive line in Prussia and Poland, and hopefully the infantry here would stall for time because the tanks were needed for the Western Front that had reached a critical status. They pushed way past the Rhine now and were just in the open plains of Germany, making a counterattack with tanks very possible. Guderian's counterattack had to work to save Germany, and at the beginning it looked pretty promising. Enemy infantry couldn't fight our tanks, and we moved super fast through the plains. Blitzkrieg was back on the menu, and a lot of communist soldiers were cut off and neutralized. This wasn't without a cost though. Since most of my tanks were here, I had to give up my gains in Yugoslavia. It was worth it since I did reclaim a lot of the lost land and even started liberating the Netherlands. The Internationale concentrated a lot of troops in the Rhineland to hold vital German industry hostage, so I used my tanks to exploit some weak points in an attempt to encircle all the troops in that area. In 1 month, the second phase was complete with the troops cut off in the Rhineland. In the month after that, almost all of Western Germany had been liberated from Internationale oppression. The West could safely be declared secure now, but with the international line so weak, why wouldn't I just keep moving west? Even in this timeline, the French make the classic blunder of leaving the Ardennes forest lightly garrisoned, so my tank divisions are just having a great time driving through the French countryside. In the chaos, many more Internationale divisions are cut off from the main front in the Benelux region and in France itself. The Dutch are soon fully liberated from Internationale forces, and it's time to go for the kill on France by focusing on Paris. It's happy times for my tanks driving through the open French plains and isolating Paris from the rest of France. Sadly, it's not enough to make them quit though, but I see that I need to speed this up more because the front lines on the Eastern Front messed up again, and the Russians were able to take a lot of very valuable land from me. France was in full collapse, and the Internationale was trying to do anything to slow me down while the Russians advanced. This naval invasion did buy them some time, but time was not on France's side when I reformed a new defensive line against the Russians. A lot of good men were cut off around Danzig, and I wanted to hold that city for as long as possible. Guderian planned to break the siege by pushing along the coast and save some of the divisions cut off, but lacked supplies to go all the way to rescue the city. I only needed a few tanks to take the last few French VPs, so most of my tank divisions could be sent to the east to prepare a new offensive against the Russians. AI still doesn't know how to fight soft attack tanks, so Guderian can already put out some good results within weeks. France finally surrenders in October, and I'm just in awe of the amount of equipment I captured from them. Must have been what the conquistadors felt when they got all that Aztec gold. So now I have a stockpile to last me the rest of the game, and I got a peace deal to annex the commune of France, and I just want you to look at that war participation. So when the Entente suggests that they should get France back, there really is only one valid response. Italy and Spain are considered low priority for now, while I focus on pushing the Russians out of Central Europe. You know, I hope some mod is eventually able to make proper use of the arms market mechanic, because it feels like such a useless gimmick right now. Only a few countries are able to take advantage of it for about 4 years before the market is just flooded with garbage nobody wants. Nobody sells the good equipment because they are of course using it in their own army, and since everybody's equipment is the same, you're just better off researching and building the guns or artillery yourself. Well, I guess Russia needs to buy equipment because of the massive losses they're taking from me. I mean, all these offensives in Poland and later on in Prussia are practically unrecoverable, even with the amount of production buffs they have. With the Russian army in shambles, I could start pushing in places that were impossible earlier, like Romania. My oil shipments from Venezuela were constantly being raided, so finally getting the Romanian oil made me feel so relieved. But I couldn't enjoy this victory for very long because the British did a massive landing in eastern Germany where I had nothing around to respond to it. They even took Berlin without a fight, which is kind of embarrassing for me at this point. I kept having to send more and more tanks to deal with the invasion since the British just committed more units. The invasion initially started in eastern Germany, but the fighting just pushed the Brits westwards, where they just dumped a whole new army in Germany. These British naval invasions were like the hydra for me. I think I'm done with them in Germany, only to see that they also naval invaded Lithuania and Barcelona. I had Russia on the ropes last year, just a few months away from complete collapse, but I get half a year's of progress stolen from me, cleaning up these stupid naval invasions and giving the Russians so much time to recover. They weren't fully dealt with till August, and at that point, since I had a bunch of tanks in southern France, I might as well just deal with Italy since they are a very annoying presence in the Balkans. Take away the French and British support and they fall apart so easily. Once they capitulated, I could just walk in and take the Dalmatian coast for free. By the way, some of you may have noticed that I've been at 0% war support for a while, and there is a reason for that. It's called bad coding. Minus 30% war support from bombing would make you think that Bomber Harris himself is having his way with Germany right now. But the skies above Germany are clear, and the only thing being bombed are some trucks and railways near the front line. I'm taking the full war support penalty from casualties with 3 million losses to secure most of Europe, but Russia over here with 10 million losses while actively losing, well, they just don't care. I want to make sure I don't have to deal with any distractions when I'm killing Russia, so I gotta take care of some loose ends. First on the list, the Balkans. And who said tanks don't do good in the mountains, cause I'm just watching them drive past a bunch right now. Copenhagen gets its long-awaited liberation, and the soldiers are ordered to continue marching all the way through Sweden and Norway. The Brits attempt yet another failed invasion of me, and I decide it's about time to show them how it's done. They lost so many men trying to save France, they had nobody around to save themselves. Only reason it wasn't a complete stomp was my tanks mysteriously not getting fuel in northern England. They got all the supplies they needed as you can see, but not the fuel. It wasn't until I unblocked the western approaches that they started getting fuel again. I guess there's just something really special about Liverpool that my fuel can only go through that port. But with that problem solved, the British immediately die. And with their country gone, the Romanian exiles decide to go out how they lived, doing another pointless invasion of France. A peace deal appears, and the Union of Britain is finally gone for good, putting Ireland back on the map. Now, nobody can distract me. America is too far away to be an issue, and I can get back to what's important here, destroying Russia for good. They never fully recovered from the damage I did to them in 1942, and I'm thankful for that because I wanted this game to be over with, and I was gonna make sure I would not need to push into Siberia to make them capitulate. Completely forgot about the Ottoman Empire until they asked to join my faction, and they clearly didn't have a good time this game, but I appreciate that we got the gang back together to deliver the final blow to kill Russia. Petrograd was my first target for the nuke, but they're still at 50% war support, so that just calls on me to drop 1 or 2 or 10 more nukes, who knows really. I'm actually really glad Turkey joined though, because my allies could start a new front for Russia in the Caucasus. Hey, it only took 6 years, but I finally secured Kiev from the Russians, guys! Mission accomplished! Ukraine is saved. But I guess the Russian army is just sick of fighting at this point, because here I am doing this a massive encirclement, and the AI just kinda lets it happen, and doesn't even try to break it out either. 12 million casualties at this point, and they still aren't out of equipment yet. Still, at this point, it's obvious Russia will lose, and I'm gonna beat this challenge I made for myself. And you may be wondering, did I enjoy this, or feel a sense of accomplishment for winning? Well, I think my answer is obvious. No! Lost my entire weekend on this stupid challenge to make this video, instead of doing something easy like a Sweden achievement run. But anyways, let's just finish up this campaign. Once I clean up the pockets I made in Russia, I could just battle plan my way to victory. Russia won't take much to surrender, since I've nuked them like a dozen times at this point, and did a collab government. I could try to take Tsaritsyn to finish off Russia, but that's just a lot of work. Nuking it's just way easier, and that finally convinces them to surrender. With that done, I think I could safely call this campaign a W. Europe is basically mine. I mean, America is still giving me angry looks across the Atlantic, but they can't actually do anything, so this is just a clear German victory. Hope you guys enjoyed watching this video though, and special shout out to my alumni on Patreon who generously give me money to torture myself with dumb HOI4 challenges. I want to be able to spend more time making quality videos for you guys, so I greatly appreciate any support you could give me on there. Anyways, expect more content soon, and I hope to see you all again.